is the suicidal, homicidal, genocidal, death-defying Sabu!
There's a dark side to pro wrestling that rarely gets talked about, but there are certain events that make it impossible for us fans to ignore this reality. The death of Terrence Brunk, aka Sabu, is one such event. Sabu was one of those special wrestlers you heard about even before you saw them perform. He was a myth, an infamous urban legend, a true pioneer of hardcore. But behind the spectacle and glory, Sabu's life was marked by physical sacrifice, pain, and tragedy. Growing up, you might remember Sabu as the homicidal, genocidal, death-defying maniac who flew through tables with his body wrapped in tape and scars that told stories of countless battles. But the tragic story of Sabu started far earlier than those legendary ECW moments. Born in 1964 in Staten Island, New York, Sabu's destiny in pro wrestling was perhaps inevitable. His uncle was none other than Ed the Sheik Farhat, the infamous wild man known for his blood-soaked matches and use of fire as a weapon. Under the Sheik's strict tutelage, Sabu began his training in the mid-1980s. He paid his dues across the independent circuit, wrestling in Memphis, Ohio, Canada, and Hawaii throughout the late 80s. He also had brief stunts in larger promotions, including the United States Wrestling Association and a few dark matches for the WWF in 1993. However, everything would change when a small Philadelphia-based promotion called Eastern Championship Wrestling came calling in late 1993. When Sabu emerged from behind the curtain at ECW's Viking Hall in October 1993, few could have predicted the massive impact this silent assassin would have on the world of pro wrestling. Debuting as an uncontrollable madman, Sabu was often brought to the ring strapped to a gurney in a Hannibal Lecter-style mask. It was here that his notorious, homicidal, suicidal, genocidal reputation was born. Sabu wouldn't just defeat opponents, he'd sacrifice his own body in the process, crashing through tables even after matches ended. In just his second match with the promotion, Sabu defeated Shane Douglas for the ECW Heavyweight Championship. Within weeks, he became a double champion when he pinned Terry Funk to capture the television championship at November to Remember 1993. His rivalry with Funk quickly became the stuff of legend. Their contrasting styles created a perfect storm of violence that pushed both men to their limits. Funk dethroned Sabu for the ECW Heavyweight Championship at Holiday Hell, and their feud culminated in February 1994, where Sabu, Funk, and Shane Douglas battled to a 60-minute time limit draw in a three-way dance, with Funk retaining the title. By mid-1994, Sabu's character evolved further when he formed an unlikely alliance with Taz. Despite their differences, the duo captured the World Tag Team Championship in February 1995 by defeating Public Enemy in a violent double tables match that further cemented Sabu's legacy. But the first of many career-threatening injuries was just around the corner. In November 1994, during a match with Chris Benoit, Sabu's reckless style caught up to him. Benoit executed a back body drop, and Sabu, ever the innovator, attempted to rotate in midair to land on his back rather than face first. The move went horribly wrong, and Sabu injured his spinal cord, resulting in severe nerve damage that could have ended his career. In a display of the maniacal toughness that would become his trademark, Sabu returned to action just 2 weeks later. This pattern of catastrophic injury followed by premature return would become a recurring theme in Sabu's career. But what made Sabu truly special during his first ECW run wasn't just his willingness to take risks, it was his innovation. He merged traditional Middle Eastern wrestling techniques taught by the Sheik with lucha libre influences and hardcore brutality. His triple jump moonsault was something the fans had never been seen before and became a featured attraction of his matches. However, just as ECW was transforming into Extreme Championship Wrestling and gaining momentum, Sabu made a career-altering decision. In April 1995, he no-showed an ECW event to accept a booking in Japan, resulting in Paul Heyman publicly firing him from ECW. Little did fans know that this controversial exit was merely the intermission in Sabu's ECW story. His journey would now take him across the Pacific to Japan and briefly into Ted Turner's WCW, where new challenges awaited the Extreme Madman. Sabu wasted no time establishing himself in the land of the rising sun. In New Japan Pro Wrestling throughout 1995, he made an astonishing 64 appearances, bringing his unique brand of chaos to Japanese audiences. Sabu captured the prestigious IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship in May 1995, adding international credibility to his growing legacy. Later that year, Sabu also had a brief run in WCW. Debuting on the September 11, 1995 episode of Monday Nitro against Alex Wright, Sabu won the match but had the decision reversed after putting Wright through a table. By late 1995, the pull of Extreme Championship Wrestling proved too strong to resist. Sabu would return to the promotion that made him famous, initiating what many consider the most legendary chapter of his career. When Sabu made his return to ECW in 1995, the Philadelphia crowd erupted. Sabu immediately embarked on a winning streak, defeating the likes of Cactus Jack, Hack Myers, and Stevie Richards. His first significant rivalry of this era came against an unexpected opponent who matched his reckless attitude, Rob Van Dam. Their initial encounter at Hostile City Showdown in 1996 was meant to be a dream match, but when RVD refused Sabu's handshake after losing, it ignited one of ECW's most personal feuds. The series of matches that followed between RVD and Sabu showcased a different side of Sabu's abilities, emphasizing his often overlooked technical wrestling skills alongside his high-flying stunts. What began as a bitter rivalry transformed into one of wrestling's most celebrated partnerships when Sabu and RVD joined forces in late 1996. With Bill Alfonso as their manager, the duo revolutionized tag team wrestling with their synchronized aerial attacks and innovative double-team maneuvers that would later be imitated by dozens of other tag teams for years to come. Sabu and RVD would also capture the ECW World Tag Team Championship twice between 1997 and 1998. However, it was Sabu's 1997 feud with Terry Funk that would produce perhaps the most infamous match of his career. A bout so extreme that Paul Heyman himself would later refuse to ever book anything similar again. At Born to be Wired, Sabu and Funk faced off in a no-rope barbed wire match for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship, advertised as being too extreme even for ECW. The match lived up to its hype when Sabu attempted his signature Air Sabu corner splash on Funk, who moved out of the way, causing Sabu to crash violently into the barbed wire. The collision tore open his bicep, creating a 10-inch gash that would have ended most matches. Instead, in what became one of wrestling's most graphic displays of dedication, Sabu asked for athletic tape and proceeded to wrap his own wound before continuing the match. Sabu eventually emerged victorious, capturing the ECW World Heavyweight Championship for a second time, but at a devastating physical cost. This was not an isolated incident, but rather the most visible example of the toll his style was taking. Throughout this period, Sabu accumulated scars across his arms and torso that became part of his visual identity, permanent reminders of barbed wire, broken tables, and shattered glass. As ECW evolved toward the end of the decade, Sabu remained one of its pillars, engaging in programs with Taz, the Dudley Boys, and Just Incredible. By the time Sabu departed ECW in early 2000, shortly before the company's financial collapse and eventual bankruptcy, his body was a roadmap of sacrifice. Multiple injuries that would have ended most careers had come and gone, with Sabu pushing through each recovery process to return to the ring prematurely. The damage was cumulative and significant, but Sabu's journey was far from over. With ECW's collapse in 2001, Sabu became a hardcore wrestling nomad. It was time for the next chapter in Sabu's story, one that saw him bring his brand of violence to independent promotions worldwide, as well as the new and emerging TNA. Sabu debuted in TNA on July 17, 2002, immediately making an impact by defeating Malice in a ladder match. In TNA, he rekindled his feud with Raven, a rivalry rooted in their ECW history, but complicated by a promise Sabu had made to his recently deceased uncle, the Sheik, that he would never fight Raven. This storyline oath added emotional depth to Sabu's typically silent character, culminating in a psychological breaking point when Raven's disrespect of the Sheik's memory finally pushed Sabu to attack him in July 2003. Their match on August 4th showcased the chemistry that had made their ECW encounters memorable. However, as had become the pattern in Sabu's career, physical breakdown was never far away. During this program, he suffered a legitimate and severe back injury, followed by a virus that hospitalized him for months. The combined medical issues sidelined him for nearly a year, leaving many to wonder if his career might finally be over. A benefit show titled A Night of Appreciation for Sabu was held in December 2003 to help cover his mounting medical expenses. Defying medical odds yet again, Sabu returned to TNA in 2005, immediately entering a feud with the Monster Abyss that pushed both men to new extremes. Sabu finally emerged victorious in this blood-soaked encounter, but the victory came with the familiar price of added scars and injuries. By early 2006, Sabu's TNA run was winding down as the company shifted its focus toward newer talents. In April, despite wrestling with a broken forearm, he challenged Samoa Joe for the X Division Championship in his final TNA match before being released. While this departure might have seemed like the twilight of a legendary career, Sabu would soon find himself in an unexpected position. The largest wrestling promotion in the world was about to get a taste of the homicidal, genocidal, death-defying madman. In early 2006, WWE had acquired ECW's assets following its bankruptcy and was planning to resurrect the brand as its third television show. For this revival to have any credibility with longtime ECW fans, it needed authentic ECW originals, and few were more authentic than Sabu. At ECW One Night Stand in 2005, Sabu defeated Rhino in a singles match, but it was at next year's event that Sabu truly showed the WWE audience what he was capable of. At ECW One Night Stand in June 2006, Sabu faced Rey Mysterio for the World Heavyweight Championship. The bout ended in controversial fashion when both men crashed through a table at ringside, with medical staff declaring neither could continue. While Mysterio retained his title by default, Sabu had made his statement. He wouldn't compromise his style, even on wrestling's biggest stage. Just days later, Sabu won a 10-man Extreme Battle Royal to earn a shot at WWE champion John Cena. This feud featured one of Sabu's most memorable WWE moments, when he crashed through the announce table with Cena after a triple jump leg drop on Raw. Their Extreme Lumberjack match at Vengeance saw Cena emerge victorious, but Sabu had successfully brought his brand of chaos to the WWE audience. Behind the scenes, however, Sabu's WWE tenure was quickly derailed by his lifestyle. On July 2, 2006, following a house show in West Virginia, Sabu and Rob Van Dam were pulled over during a routine traffic stop. Officers discovered 18 grams of marijuana, 5 Vicodin pills, and 9 testosterone pills, leading to the arrest of both men. Coming at a time when WWE was under intense scrutiny following Eddie Guerrero's death and the implementation of their new wellness policy, the timing couldn't have been worse. While WWE didn't terminate Sabu's contract, the incident effectively ended his push. He was fined $1,000 and given a 30-day suspension, returning to a significantly diminished role. By late 2006, Sabu was primarily used in multi-man matches. His final significant WWE storyline involved joining the ECW Originals faction to feud with the new breed of ECW talent, culminating in a match at WrestleMania 23 where the Originals emerged victorious. Sabu's final WWE match came on the May 1, 2007 episode of ECW, competing in a fatal four-way match to determine the #1 contender for the ECW World Championship. 2 weeks later, on May 16, 2007, WWE announced Sabu's release from his contract. In just 1 year, Sabu had gone from challenging for world championships to being quietly let go. Following his WWE release in 2007, Sabu returned to the familiar territory of the independent circuit. By this point, his body was marked by decades of crashes through tables, barbed wire cuts, and high-flying maneuvers that had taken an irreversible toll. Yet, like a warrior unable to put down his sword, Sabu continued to perform the same death-defying moves that had made him infamous. The post-WWE years brought brief returns to TNA, first in 2010 as part of the ECW reunion-themed Hardcore Justice pay-per-view, where he faced his longtime friend and rival, Rob Van Dam. These occasional appearances on larger platforms became increasingly rare as time progressed, with Sabu primarily working smaller independent promotions across North America and Europe, often in front of crowds that were mere fractions of the audiences he once commanded. In these twilight years, there was both beauty and tragedy in Sabu's persistence. The beauty lay in his unwavering commitment to the character and style he had pioneered. The tragedy in watching a body clearly breaking down continue to endure punishment it could no longer recover from. One bright spot in Sabu's later years came in the form of Melissa Coates, who began accompanying him to the ring in 2014. Their relationship blossomed beyond a professional partnership into a personal one, providing Sabu stability and support during challenging times. When Coates tragically passed away in June 2021, it represented yet another personal loss for Sabu, who had already endured the deaths of many colleagues and friends from his ECW days. Financial struggles became a recurring theme, with various wrestling communities occasionally organizing fundraisers to help with Sabu's mounting medical bills. For his final match, Poetically, Sabu returned to his hardcore roots at Joey Janela's Spring Break 9 on April 18, 2025. At 60 years old, his body held together by will as much as sinew, Sabu gave fans one last glimpse of the innovative violence that had made him a legend. Just 3 weeks later, he was gone. Sabu never compromised. He never changed his approach to please mainstream audiences and never stopped giving everything he had to the fans of professional wrestling. In the end, the homicidal, suicidal, genocidal madman paid the ultimate price for his art. A revolutionary who set himself on fire to light the way forward, leaving behind a body broken by innovation and a legacy that wrestling will never fully repay.